Good morning. Welcome to Civics Sundays. We'll get started this morning. A couple of announcements before we start. I just found out we lost Tom Stevenson over the weekend. So if you didn't know Tom, you do know someone like him. Highly principled, never on the winning side of any campaign that I really remember, but he was always on message for what he believed. He was passionate. Just gone way too soon. I was unexpected. I was going to text him last week and catch up, as I do almost every month or two, and now I can't. So that shocked me a little bit. I found out just this morning about 7 o'clock. Okay, that housekeeping out of the way, and condolences to he and his family and all of us that knew him. One thing that that always stuns me is that the internet probably came around in the 50s somewhere in California or with the military defense contracting organizations, but it came to most of us in the late 90s, 96, 97, 98. And the hope, my hope at that time was, holy cow, we're going to have all things available to us all the time. Anything we want will be at the click of a button. The Wikipedia of our lives is here. I felt that way in 97, 98, and 99, and it's 2021, and it's almost reverted to we have less information available to us. We have a lot of information pushed towards us, but if we want specific information about some things, it seems impossible to find. So obviously, I don't like that. Another thing that's obvious, or should be, is how much money is in our government world. In the government's all of us, and taxes and spending. So there's a tremendous amount of revenue available, and unfortunately, information not available. So somebody I've met along the way is Paul Wolf, who has started officially the Coalition for Open Government. Unofficially, I don't remember Paul ever not doing this. So I don't know when it became official and not official. He'll tell us. But Paul was always on the mission of, I just want to know, why aren't you telling me? And that leads to asking why multiple times. So thank God people like Paul do. And this is kind of like shop local. We need to know more about Paul's organization. We need to know more about things like investigative posts that we kind of know about, but they are what really drive information in 2021, which I thought was coming in 1997, but we're still struggling in 2021. Okay, without further ado, let me bring in Paul, who is kind of movie star handsome, I think. I don't lean that way, but Paul, you look better as you get older, to me at least.
Oh, thanks, Tom. It's great to be here.
I'm sure you do a lot of Zoom calls in your profession, but you need a picture on the wall, dude.
Yeah, I kind of haven't, invested in a background. I just have a blank wall.
Let's put the lines and heights, like at 7-Eleven, doorway. If nothing else, I'm going to see if Mike can post that in. So anyway, with that intro, I've never known you not to be on the path of more information. When did it become an official thing?
Well, we first started the Coalition for Open Government as the Buffalo Niagara Coalition back in 2017. In 2016, I came up with the idea, and I have an email list that I kind of cobbled together, and I sent out a press release, and it was great that Rod Watson from the Buffalo News wrote up a nice article about it, that this is something that's really needed. So we had our first meeting in the summer of 2016, and I was shocked. I didn't know if, one person was going to show up. No one was going to show up. About 30 people showed up at that first meeting. And from there, we didn't form a board of directors until January of 2017. And then in 2020, we went statewide, changed our name from the Buffalo Niagara Coalition to the New York Coalition for Open Government.
And what got people to that meeting? What did you ask them to come for? What's open government?
So, I worked in government. I worked as chief of staff for the Buffalo Common Council for a couple of years. I've worked as an attorney at the Erie County Department of Social Services, the Housing Authority. And in all those jobs, I dealt with freedom of information law issues, open government issues from the inside. And it was interesting. The resistance there was to release information. And I was always, as an attorney, arguing, just give it to them. What's the big deal? Mm-hmm. So I was always interested while I worked for government. And then I left government in 2011, went into private law practice, and was still interested in the issue. And every now and then I would read an article. I would go to my Amherst Town Board meetings where I live, and I would ask for things and file requests, and I would get resistance. And then I would read articles about someone had a problem in West Seneca, someone had an issue in Cheektowaga. And I said, geez, I know it's not just me. Maybe we could form some sort of group where together we could fight this fight, because it's a hard fight to fight on your own. And sure enough, there's enough people out there that are interested in what's going on and that want information, and they get the resistance and the pushback, and they're all over the state of New York. And we've been growing with people who just have their own personal experiences, that feel wronged by this, are passionate about it. So it's been great.
Well, now, I guess you're not FOIL requesting, or people aren't asking for like my health records, whether I have a heart condition. They're asking whether a road got paved or not. I mean, why isn't it easier to find out information? What is the resistance to giving it all out?
That's a great question. And, I have met and dealt with elected officials, and I think you have to have a certain kind of personality, not all, and we can't always cast the net completely broadly, but there are some common traits. I think people who run for office are pretty confident, a touch of arrogance, some of them more than a touch of arrogance. And the worst thing in all of our lives is to be embarrassed. And to be in the public arena, it's not, and I always tell elected officials, you don't have an easy job. It is not easy to be a council member, a county legislator, a mayor. We need more good people to step in that arena and do it. But those that are in that arena, they hate to be embarrassed. Their embarrassments and mistakes are public, So I think there's just this resistance of, I made a mistake here and I don't want this to get out, or I don't want this used against me. It's all about, keeping your position and your power, and anything that, could be used to attack you or threaten that. I think there's just resistance to it. And there's certainly a culture in government of making people jump through hoops to get stuff, that you're a pest. Why are you asking for this? There must be some underlying motive that's, going to be used against me. There's a bit of paranoia amongst most elected officials that I know.
I care mostly about focusing on one place, and we all grew up here. Say, is it this way in the rest of the country or even the world, this culture of paranoia? Because you're being very kind. I mean, it's Sunday morning, but let it rip. I mean, there's no reason not to say, yes, this is what I did. I mean, embarrassed or not, public service is supposed to be just a volunteer part-time job, so to speak. When you're in there 30 years and it's become your whole pension, then I don't know. But I mean, most of the stuff that you FOIL request or that anyone wants to know is banal. It's just nothingness. It becomes more of a story to not give it out, frankly.
I agree. That's what I would say when I worked at City Hall was give it to them, and it probably just goes away and nothing comes of it. And what are you worried about anyways? And even with me, if someone is saying no, it just makes me dig more, want it more, and it does create more of a story. And I see it happen time and time again.
So are we like that locally, or is that the way it is everywhere?
I think it seems to be across the state. I think Niagara County keeps me very busy. I think Niagara County seems to be even worse than a lot of areas, and I'm not sure why. A lot of times I think the smaller the community, in many instances, the worse it is. Niagara County is significantly smaller than Erie County and some other places. I've had issues in small villages and towns, and in a lot of ways, I think it seems to get a little more insular and a little more difficult in some of these smaller areas.
Before I go along I'm forgetting how to do this, but how do people find out? What's the web address? Can we join? Because, what you do needs to be done more. How do we find out more?
Sure. So the New York Coalition for Open Government is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We have a website, newyorkopengov.org. So that's nyopenGov.org. We have a Facebook page where we put up a lot of information on that. If you just search our name, you can find us on there and you can follow. You can become a paid member of the organization just for $20 a year. And we have right now 40 paid members and growing. And we have members now from 13 counties across New York State, which is great. Our Facebook page, last I looked, is up to 345 followers and growing. So we do a lot of different reports throughout the year, and all of that is up on our website. So, feel free to check it out.
So if I had a question and I wanted to know, town of Tonawanda, tree purchases or something, and I could call, message you guys and you would say, here's how you do it. You could help me. You could teach me how to do it myself, because you're able to do it, right? I mean, we should all be able to do it, but we don't know how.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're doing more and more is I get a lot of emails and phone calls saying, hey, I'm trying to file this FOIL request and I'm running into problems. And I've been keeping track of that now. So far this year, I've had, I think, 45 people contact me with different questions about the Freedom of Information Law and Open Meetings Law. And that's a big part of what we're doing now, is assisting people.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to me, because you're doing it or everybody's doing it, it's gotten even harder because they seem to have toughened or written down the rules of it. Used to be way back when you file a FOIL, they give it to you. I mean, I'm sure there was some unwritten rules, but now it seems like if you file it, we have 20 days. At the end of those 20 days, we can tell you we can't, we get another 45 days. And after the end of those 45 days, we can tell you we can't, we can get 60 days. I mean, it's become too bulky, or no? Is that just my impression?
No, that's true. And I think COVID is being used as an excuse now in a lot of ways. Well, sorry for the delay, but COVID. Well, I don't see, why that's a legitimate excuse, truthfully. But there seem to be never-ending delays. It seems, part of it is just attrition. Wear you down. And unfortunately, there's no real penalty or consequences. The only remedy is sue us. And, how easy is that to do? Not.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is difficult.
People run for office and they don't get asked much, because what do we know what we want to do? And this is why I like Civics is, we have a city council person running for office and somebody will mention, their garden or Trump or Biden. It's no, I do this, is this something we could formulate that we say, hey, look, I want you to pass a FOIL law. Could we craft something that we actually say, no, I want your answer on this? Is that possible? Or is FOIL a state thing, local thing, county thing? Who runs the FOIL world?
So the Freedom of Information Law there's a state law and a federal law. And same thing for the Open Meetings Law. There's a New York Open Meetings Law, not really a federal Open Meetings Law. So it's predominantly state law. And, the law, a lot of statutes are kind of written with a lot of vagueness to them, a lot of leeway to them. I mean, for example, New York's Open Meetings Law, which I view as pretty weak, says that a public body should post meeting documents online before a meeting to the extent practicable. What? To the extent practicable as determined by the agency.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so we've actually convinced a state legislator to introduce legislation to say you have to post your meeting documents 24 hours before a meeting occurs. Mm-hmm. It's not hard. You just scan the documents and post them online. What is hard about this? Right. But there have been court decisions that said, well, they posted it online an hour before the meeting. That's sufficient under New York law because it doesn't say you have to do it by a certain time period. Mm-hmm. So the law is really weak, and we're just this year wade into the world of Albany and are getting some bills introduced. We've also had some strange experiences where a bill that we introduced was amended and completely gutted, and now we're opposing that bill. How did this happen? We had a bill introduced that meeting minutes should be posted online within 2 weeks of a meeting. It's crazy that the law doesn't mandate that. It just says they have to be made available if you ask for them. Well, why do we have to make people ask for them? Why can't they just be posted online? So that simple bill got completely changed to, you don't even have to keep meeting minutes if you don't want to, and you can just post a video of the meeting instead. So a bill that we originally supported, we're now opposing.
Yeah. Hey, let me go specific to, I read, I read an email this morning from Jim Heaney, who investigative post, which is great. It comes out every Sunday at 6 a.m. And so in there, he mentioned something about a foil and something about OTB in Niagara. Well, Niagara County is not, it's 14 counties, but he mentioned OTB. And that got me thinking of this, because OTB has hired an attorney and cost $92,000 last year, basically to stop you from getting any documents. There's a real cost to what you do, right? It's not just we should have Shangri-La and everybody should see everything. When they hide stuff, I have to pay, right? That's $92,000 that's not coming to me this year.
Yeah, it's correct. It's amazing the amount of money these lawsuits can cost. And I believe it was the New York Times spent several $100,000 suing the Cuomo administration to get emails released. It's incredible. And Terry Connors is an excellent attorney. He's considered to be one of the best attorneys in Western New York. So not an easy guy to fight with, especially when he's being paid $92,000 a year. So some, newspaper or reporter now has to, try to fight that. It's crazy the way the system works. And in other states, it's different. In the state of Massachusetts, you can file a complaint with the state attorney general. They will investigate it, and they can fine local governments who violate the law. And if the local government doesn't agree with that, they have to sue. Here we have the complete opposite. A reporter or a private citizen has to go hire an attorney, and you might get awarded attorney fees. So now on top of the $92,000 that OTB paid Terry Connors, OTB, if they lose, may have to pay investigative post attorney fees as well. So it's just an incredible amount of money, as you say, just fighting the release of information.
We're talking with Paul Wolf, who's the founder of New York Coalition for Open Government. And we're talking about, I put it in my own vernacular, information and FOIL requests. And Paul, it's stunning how expensive it is in New York to keep things private. And so when we talk about it being a tough state for business or a tough state for taxes, it's more these things. It isn't paying somebody extra unemployment and then complaining that they might sit on their sofa and not work. That is just red meat for the uninformed, right? I mean, it's these things that they do not just say, sure, here you go. I'm sure the OTB, I want to stay on that for a second. I'm sure they have an attorney on staff, right?
Yes.
I mean, their CEO is an attorney. And so $92,000 is extra from maybe multiple attorneys at this revenue generating organization. And I don't really want to say this negatively, but I mean, I think OTB was started in '74 as a way to get organized crime out of the horse racing industry. Now to protect all your information as if it was state secrets seems organized to me. No?
And their employees are state employees. They're collecting state pensions. The executive director's salary last I knew was like $192,000 a year or something. So, I mean, it's all, government funded in many ways. Now, part of their argument is as well, the money we get is not government money. It comes from, the bets that we receive, et cetera, et cetera. But, it's all appointments by the county legislature, it's state employees. They're a public benefit corporation. it shouldn't be this difficult. I mean, the simple request that they were fighting about is, people were given free tickets to go to Bills games. And someone asked, well, who got these tickets? That was a year-long fight. I mean, why is that so hard?
A year-long fight, it's an ongoing fight. It hasn't ended because they're paying $92,000 to keep it secret.
Yeah.
So, and another thing, we got somebody with a question, but before that, another thing that people say is that there's nothing in the newspaper. And again, it's red meat for the uninformed. Oh, there's nothing in the newspaper. I wish they'd cover this. I wish they'd write about this. But one of the interesting things for local journalists is people don't answer questions anymore or give information a la FOIL requests. So you can't write a better story when the political organization won't even return your phone call or email or answer a FOIL request. They've just completely shut it out. So again, what you do can certainly help with local journalism or journalism in general. No, or, you think?
I agree. I think one of the only ways we can make change, because filing lawsuits is very hard to do, but we've done it and won one recently. But one of the few ways you can make change is through media coverage and the whole point elected officials don't want to release information is being embarrassed, but sometimes we have to embarrass them that they're not releasing information. And we've had success with some of our reports calling people out for violating the Freedom of Information Law, open meetings law, and then they will make changes. But it shouldn't have to come to that we have to, do this. But
What we do.
But as you have mentioned, the lack of response I find incredible. I send out a lot of emails to elected officials, and I rarely get a response. Rarely do I even get a automated "thank you for contacting my office" response.
You're right. Those have gone by the wayside. They don't even send an auto reply anymore.
It's just incredible. Just ignore. I'm not going to bother with you. I don't care, what you have to say. It's just incredible.
We've got a question from Mark. You're able to ask questions on the show. So if you do have a question, just, put your hand up, or however you do that, Mike will get you in the queue and we'll get the question there. Mark Scheer and Paul Wolf, they know each other. They've met before.
Can you hear me, everybody?
Do we want to hear you, or can we have you here? Go ahead.
I have so many things I would like to say, but I'll start with, I want to thank Paul and his organization, because so many times over the years, they've just been like the only people who kind of understand like what reporters are going through or try to help and give us direction. So it's been really invaluable to have that assistance so often when you're staring at a government agency and saying, there's no way they have to give us this, right, Paul? And sometimes it's successful and sometimes it takes longer, and you really have to be patient. And one thing I've really learned over the years is you just keep whacking away at it, And the thing I like to try to tell people, and I know Paul probably tells them this too, you learn the procedure and you follow the procedure and you keep at it. And, if you get a denial, you appeal. I started appealing even when I get stuff, just to do it, because I think a master of I've learned a lot about things from reporters at larger papers who tell you, the trick is just keep appeal again, maybe you'll get more, maybe they'll look again. So I think one of the things I would ask you is, how hard is it to sort of articulate, like I do this kind of for a living, it's a big part of my job. How hard is it to explain to the average person, this is your right, you can do this, these are the procedures? I mean, how does that go for you?
I find that people are pretty knowledgeable when they contact me. There is a lot of information online. So I think people have a pretty basic understanding of, it seems like I should be able to get this information. Some of it is just helping people, word it correctly. People have to be as specific as possible, as brief as possible as well. I've seen some people that will submit, 5 pages of requests, and I help them scale it down. But one of the problems is even a lot of local government websites don't even have information on there on how to file a FOIL, or, provide an electronic fill in the blank form to make it easy that you can, fill out and email in. So part of what we do is to educate people. We've done some training sessions online. We'll hope to do some more. And reporters like you are a tremendous help as well, because you write a lot of articles about these things. And I think people see those articles, and that makes them aware as well. I mean, the lawsuit we filed in Niagara County stems from articles Mark Scheer wrote about. I had no knowledge about what was going on, and Mark for years wrote articles about how county legislators were denying him FOIL requests for their financial disclosure forms that they file every year. And I read that article and I said, this is crazy. How can this happen? And because of that, we filed a lawsuit last year and won. So it took Mark's persistence for years. I mean, again, it shouldn't take that long, but having that persistence is important.
Paul, let me jump in. Mark, don't go away. I got a question for you. But Paul, let me jump in, and to my point is, I think Niagara Falls specifically should be a shining city on a hill. It should be way more than it is. It's fine. I'm not going to be critical about it, but it should be the best city in all of New York State. It's got all the money in the world. It's got great people. It's got great resources, and it isn't. So part of my research of finding out why is not as obvious as a curb or street or snowplow. It's stuff like you're talking about, not giving information, being secret, spending all the resources to keep things secret that really aren't even bad if they got out. That's the cultural, detail that I think holds our region back. Am I wrong or no? You can tell me I'm wrong.
Well, as we talked about earlier, I think there is a culture, in government about resistance to this, and that culture seems to be very strong in Niagara County. I mean, Niagara County was the only county in all of New York State that had a local law that said their disclosure forms are secret and confidential. I personally checked every single county's ethics law, and no other county had that law. So that's pretty incredible that they went to the degree of getting attorneys to draft this, and this should work. And then, as you said, the resistance was really for nothing, because once we got those forms and I looked at them, I didn't really see anything of significance. I mean, maybe I missed something, but why the fight? I mean, why was that necessary? Mm-hmm. And that culture, it just affects everything. I don't know if Mark has any take on it, but.
Well, Tom and I talked a lot, and he always says, it's ingrained, it's just kind of ingrained, and it's a lot of it is, and I dealt with it many, many years, who's asking, why are you asking, go away, and I imagine being like, I'm a reporter and they would do it to me. Right. And then I was an editor and they would do it to me. I imagine an average citizen, trying to get information about something. There's a lot of things happening right now with like solar projects and things like that all across the county. And people are starting to say, this is something that's going to impact my neighborhood or my backyard. I need to know what's happening. And they try to understand the process. And a lot of times it just gets shut right down. And without some understanding of the rules, or that they have the ability to get information on their own, a lot of people, I think, just kind of walk away,
Two things. So last week we had on Assemblyman Morinello who represents Niagara Falls. Fantastic. He returns every call. I mean, we couldn't ask for more communication. But in this exact topic line, I asked a couple weeks ago for the written report on the $46 million expenditure in the state park, the new welcome center, or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to get it wrong, but you know why we get it wrong? Because nothing's written down. So he was very good. He returned the call in 10 seconds and blah, 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 right? the end result of that is I got forwarded like 3 different, try this person, try this person, try this person. I didn't get the answer. And after 3 times of being put off, I quit. You know, I didn't get the report. Nothing is written. I don't think anything is written. And I just quit. So there you go. I mean, I wish I was, you know, the determination of a Paul Wolf or a reporter like Mark Scheer, but I'm not. So once you teach Joe Public how to do it, I tried 3 times. He didn't, you know, I don't have it. I don't know. That hurts. Second thing, Chuck Schumer, I've loved for a long time, 30 years. But Mark has written this story about the outrageously bizarro stamp plant out in Genesee County in Alabama swamp. It is literally Alabama swamp, and they're paving it with concrete. So all that aside, the powers that be, the 3rd most powerful elected human being in the most powerful country in the world, Chuck Schumer, is ramming this. Samsung is going to build a chip plant in Genesee County. I know it. It's going to happen. They announce in Korea, not a stupid company. They send out a press release saying they're going to build it in Texas. Chuck Schumer says, I don't think so. I think it's still coming to Genesee County. So my point being, why didn't Mark Scheer write a story that says 3rd most powerful elected person in the most powerful country in the world might be insane? Why isn't that the headline? Because clearly a worldwide company made an announcement on their stationery, and our person said, I don't think so. I think it's still going to come where we're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into a swamp. Like, I'm frustrated by that. Why don't we call it what we call it? That was a nutty statement from him. No? Am I too passionate? Get off my lawn, Paul.
I'll leave it to Mark.
I mean, I think what it is that we want clarity, right? With all these things. That's the point. That's my job, right? To try to understand what's happening. So you ask around and you try to get information and you say, what's going on? And this is, again, I think this is becoming a more, it seems to be getting, I don't know if worse is the right word, but it's actually getting harder to sort of get to the person in charge, or there's all these people who are basically public relations people for the government, and they send out statements, or they, you know, that nobody answers the phone. And in COVID, you really couldn't go and kind of corner them in the, you know, in their office, but why is that necessary? You know, when a reporter calls and says, what are we doing with $10 million? You know, why is there nothing? Or, you know, because that's the job. That's what I do, right? But one thing I was going to ask Paul real quick. So speaking of Angelo Morinello and the assembly, and I may be wrong here, but I seem to recall a time a while back where we tried to foil some things through the state Senate, and we're told essentially the state Senate is not responsive to foil in the same way as like a local government. Can you speak a little bit to the state legislature and things that are kind of like off limits, I guess, if I'm understanding it correctly? And how can it be that the state legislature, which is one of the highest forms of government in the entire state, can exempt itself essentially?
That is amazingly true. You know, the legislature that writes the laws has exempted themselves from many requirements of the Freedom of Information Law. I haven't personally filed any foils with the state legislature, so I'm not really up on what is foilable and what's not, but they are treated differently than any other government agency because they wrote the rules that way, which is pretty incredible. I mean, it's amazing, like, you know, most local governments post meeting minutes, not the state legislature. The state Senate, actually, you can watch video of their meetings at least, not the state assembly. So they are certainly less transparent in a lot of ways. But they wrote the rules.
Paul, did they write those rules under Governor DeWitt Clinton in the 1800s, or did they just amend them in the last 10 years? Because I just feel like it's gotten tougher to get information, not easier.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been any changes recently, but you know, the FOIL law in New York State came out in the mid 70s. I would imagine probably from the get-go, they exempted themselves.
Paul, a couple of questions here. Somebody, Sonia has texted a question of or a statement that people are just tired with the status quo lately and they're looking for change. I would say most people still run unopposed. So that's a problem. They may be tired, but nobody's running for office. And it seems foil is second only to getting on the ballot with petition signatures being harder. So I don't know, Sonia, that's a great point. Yet, I don't know, nobody's running for office necessarily. And then to that point, I want to bring in Dave, who has a question, because Dave's got a long history of knowing about politics. So maybe he'll have a better answer for Sonia as well. Dave, are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Paul, good to see you again. I've spent a lifetime really in politics and government and working in the Assembly, the Senate, state, county legislature, ECMC. Let's understand something about public information officers. They're not there to give you information. They're there to give you the information that institution wants you to have. And speaking about, exempting themselves from the laws, Congress exempts themselves from all the laws. Congressmen they're exempt from all those laws. So they're just, the state Senate and the state legislature are really just following, Congress. It's a mess. And again, I've done public information. I'm with you guys. Give it to them. Give them everything. Actually, one of the smartest politicians in Erie County, Joe Krangle, when he was a water authority commissioner, he said, give them everything. They won't even be able to get through it all. Just give them copies of everything, because in the end, they're going to get to it. And the story becomes that they're not willing to give it to you. Andrew Cuomo likes to call himself the greatest, most open government ever. It's the worst. It has never been this bad. And
that was my point, Dave. Hold the phone for a second. Is that it does seem to have gotten tougher in the last, I'll say it, in New York State for Andrew Cuomo. Dave, you hit it on the head. It seems like in his, career, it's gotten incredibly difficult, not only to get any FOIL requests, but reporters like Mark Scheer there aren't any more press conferences. COVID is an aberration. Just before COVID, and certainly now that we're out of COVID, have you heard Kathy Hochul say boo? Have you heard Andrew Cuomo address any political questions? There isn't a press conference anymore. People seem to have a press officer that simply is there to stop any questions and not take any questions.
Not even, they're willing, it's like Richard Azzaparati or whatever his last name, I never can pronounce it. He always is the person responding. Andrew Cuomo, why don't you, take a minute from writing your book and designing your poster, telling the world how great you are, and answer a question. Just answer it, yes and no could be good answers. He just doesn't seem to do it. Mark Poloncarz in Erie County, it's always Anderson answering the question. The only time you hear Mark Poloncarz speak is when he puts on his jacket in the winter, goes to his bunker and tells us about the storm, or he's standing outside the building giving you a little speech.
Exactly.
I've written those speeches, and by the way, you know what? They're designed for, hey, put it in the newspaper and let's hope people think we're doing a good job. It's terrible. It's 1984. It really is horrible.
Paul,
why I keep fighting.
Paul, do you bleed into that, not just FOIL, but open government, where they don't take questions anymore? They don't even answer questions.
Yeah, things have gotten worse, I think. There are fewer and fewer press conferences. I think things under Governor Cuomo have gotten worse, and every reporter I talk to confirms that. And he did, when he ran, say he was going to be the most transparent governor ever. And it's certainly far, far from it. He's very controlling, very resistant to, and very dismissive a lot of times of being asked questions. And then we had this fiasco of the New York State Committee on Open Government, which is, a great agency that makes a lot of information available to the public. But when Robert Freeman left there, the governor, behind closed doors, handpicked the successor for the New York State Committee on Open Government. So even the Committee on Open Government can't have an honest hiring process or selection that's open to the public. It's gotten worse. The resistance to answering questions and just responding in general.
So how do we, let me go back and ask Dave maybe, because Dave's more on the elective side of government and politics. How could it have gotten worse? It's easier to run for office, or maybe it isn't. More people claim they want to run for office, but maybe they're not. How do we turn it around to having a transparent thing anymore?
You just have to keep, and both Paul and you and Mark spoke with, you just have to keep pounding your head against the wall until it breaks. There's a classic example that's just happened in Erie County with Hormoz Mansouri running for comptroller. The board approved his petition. They took the Democratic Party chairman, who's also the elections commissioner, took it to court, and kept it's still in the courts, and it's now at the Court of Appeals in Albany. But the thing is this: I was talking to somebody today. I said, "Well, it costs a lot of money." I said, "Yeah, it costs Hormoz money because he has to hire attorneys. Headquarters doesn't hire attorneys; they have attorneys volunteer. You know why? They want to be judges, and they're getting chips. I'm cashing them in. I get to become the next judge. So you just have to keep fighting, keep exposing it, because average citizens, when they hear about it, they shake their head and say, "Yeah, that's wrong." You have to just keep calling people out on the carpet and saying, "Look, this is what's going on." It's not really that we're ever going to win completely, but we just got to keep fighting.
Paul,
and I want to get off now.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Keep
Paul,
up the good work, guys.
Thank you. How do we put teeth into this? Because if you made it jailable by 10 years, right? You could 10 years if you don't give it to me, it'd be given tomorrow. That's an extreme. If we made it $100 fine, people might pay $100 to keep it secret. Where's the sweet spot in the middle where people just, obviously we can't run everybody out of office. Well, our lives will end. Tom Stevenson's life ended Friday night when he was fighting this fight for his whole life. I don't want that to happen to Paul Wolf or Tom Christie or Dave Pfaff or Mark Scheer. How do we really get this in our lifetime?
Well, one of the things we're focusing on now is state legislation, and I think you really have to change state laws. So we're learning the ropes here. We may have a bill that we're pushing get passed this year, and we have to build upon that and create some way to enforce violations of the law. Other states do it. I mean, Massachusetts, right next door to New York, the Attorney General has the power to investigate and fine people. In Florida, you can be charged with a criminal misdemeanor if it can be shown that you purposely withheld information for a FOIL request. There has been a bill introduced in Albany to impose criminal penalties. I don't think that really has much chance of success, but we can start chipping away legally to change some of these exemptions, to just strengthen the law. And that's going to be a growing focus of ours. And I think a big part of that, as you mentioned, is changing the election laws. It's too hard to run for office. We need more people to run for office. Almost all the candidates that filed in Erie County to challenge the status quo at the city and county level were tossed off the ballot. And it's harder than it should be. And that's purposeful, because I heard a politician say to me once, the best election is no election. And that's what they want. They don't want opponents.
Yeah. Paul, you work with other people too. Are the colleges involved? UB, Buff State, Canisius, anybody else working with you? I mean, this seems like, right up a young attorney's alley to learn this stuff.
UB has a great clinic. They have civil liberties and transparency clinic. And there's an attorney there, Mike Higgins, and they represented us in the lawsuit that we filed against Niagara County. We didn't have any money I thought about doing it myself, but it gets a little dicey representing yourself, and that's not a smart thing to do. And fortunately, we were able to convince the UB Law Clinic to take on our cause, and they have students under the direction of Mike Higgins. We were successful in that lawsuit. There's other similar clinics at Cornell University, Cornell Law School that we've been working with. So that is, and I've also started to work with college newspapers. I've been giving some advice to the UB Spectrum newspaper at Oswego State, which is great because that's where the next generation of journalists are going to come from. And it's great that there's programs and student newspapers that are teaching them about FOIL and the open meetings law. I've done press conferences where I've had reporters say to me, I never heard of the open meetings law. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, how is this possible?
Right.
So we are building some of those connections.
Paul, I want to get back to whether this is a state thing that can only happen at the state. If we built Niagara Falls, for instance, in a Shangri-La, the most perfect place on earth, could Niagara Falls City Council pass a rule saying we're giving everything to everybody? All you have to do is ask, or does the state weigh in and say your hands are tied?
The state sets the minimum level. Local governments can go above and beyond that. And we have put together a list of best practices that we think local government should do. And we've sent that out to folks, encouraging them to do it. Just because you can have an executive's closed door session doesn't mean you have to. I mean, they always go behind closed doors to talk about collective bargaining agreements, but you don't have to. You can talk about that in public, and why not? You don't have to go behind closed doors to talk about a lawsuit. In fact, you should only do it if you're discussing legal strategy, which truthfully, a city council member shouldn't be involved with anyways. I think that what happens when they go behind closed doors to talk about lawsuits is they just get an update. Well, why can't we do that in public? You can. And, you don't have to have a majority vote for executive sessions. Places like Ithaca City Council said, you got to have a 2/3 vote. We could do things like that. So local governments can go above and beyond. For example, these financial disclosure forms, they don't have to be posted online, but we encourage local governments to do it. And in fact, the Niagara Falls City Council, most of their council members post their form online, which is great. Here you go. We had to sue Niagara County to get it, but in Niagara Falls, they've been proactive and they post it right on their webpage.
Is there, so that was a yes, I take it. Is there a way to craft the perfect world that you would want to live in for the city of Niagara Falls? Because I'm focused on the city of Niagara Falls. How do we make it the best city on earth? What would be the best city on earth for you in this world?
Well, open government wise, an easy process, and be proactive. Instead of waiting for people to FOIL information, you can put it online, open data. There's all kinds of information now that can be uploaded online, and it saves staff time. It takes a tremendous amount of time to respond to these things. So just put as much information online as possible. Have fewer executive sessions. I think local governments, some local governments, every single meeting, they have an executive session, and some of them meet longer in private than they do in public, which is amazing. You don't have to have all these executive sessions. And, a lot of it is, I think we've always done it this way. So I think there's a lot of bad practices. I don't think all of it is malicious. I think what happens is this is how we've always done it. And a new person comes on and you're not sure of yourself and you don't really know what's happening. So you go with the flow. And a lot of it's just bad practices, including municipal attorneys who I think in a lot of ways, they do this part-time. This really isn't their field of expertise, and they make mistakes and give bad advice on what's required. So a lot of it is education, training, but a willingness to do things differently.
Now, is this off message or not? Again, in the city of Niagara Falls, it seemed like the first thing that they decided to do under a new administration was prevent the newspaper from getting the police blotter stuff. I love reading the paper. You look at the obituaries, you look at some local stories, and then you go, hey, what's the police blotter is always, it's like the cartoon page. So-and-so got robbed, leaving Wegmans with a pound of butter. It's just kind of funny stuff. They stopped it. What was that all about? I'm sure you saw that.
Yeah, and we did get involved in that. Mayor Restaino, recently elected as mayor. My understanding is the tradition had always been the Niagara Falls Police Department would send an email out of their blotter of recent arrests and occurrences, and reporters would get that on a regular basis. that Mayor Restaino was going to put a stop to that and said, you know what, why are we handing this information out? You should have to file a FOIL request. Well, you know, if you're a reporter, you want this information timely. And if you're a member of the public, you want this information timely as well. So we found out about that actually from Rick Pfeiffer, a reporter at the Niagara Gazette. He approached us and said, you know, this doesn't seem right. I mean, this is going to be a real problem filing FOIL requests. We sent a letter to the mayor of Niagara Falls, and to his credit, he listened. I give the mayor credit. He explained to us he had a legitimate concern in his opinion. It looked like, you know, you just want to stop bad publicity. You know, as a mayor, you don't want bad publicity, and police blotters are bad publicity. He explained that what's in those emails is a lot of information. It has witnesses' names and addresses, victims' names and addresses, and that's really private information that shouldn't be disclosed. And reporters had always honored that, but I guess there was one situation, and I don't even know if it happened while he was mayor or before he was mayor. There was one situation where that was kind of violated, where a newspaper printed, you know, information about a witness's name and a victim's name. And his way of stopping that was, you know, you got to file the FOIL request, we'll black out the information, then give it to you. But to his credit, he came up with a solution, and the solution now is the emails still go out, but they black it out before they send it out. You know, why require the FOIL request? So in the end, it worked itself out. But I don't know if it would have if the media and our group didn't push back on it.
Mm-hmm. I guess the only thing I noticed, I don't follow this as well or as much as you guys would, but the only thing I noticed recently was that the mayor's office announces police stuff. There was a shooting and the mayor announced it instead of the police chief. Why does everything need to go through? Why can't the police speak for themselves? It seems to be backwards progress.
Yeah, and that's happening a lot too. A lot of local governments are saying everything has to go through. I think Niagara Falls has one now too, our public information officer, that you cannot speak to rank and file police officers. And that's becoming more and more common. I even saw recently there was a policy on the Williamsville School Board that only the board president should speak to the media and not the individual board members. Are you kidding me? We have elected board members who are going to be muzzled because it all should flow through the board president. So those are a problem. The public and the press should be allowed to question public employees. I mean, why does it have to go through the mayor or the police chief only? We disagree with that, and we're going to push back on that.
So I started by this hour by talking about my vision in 1996 and 7 with the internet coming is we would have exactly the opposite. You would be able to reach out directly to anyone and get an answer, and it would be just whatever happened. It would be the truth. And now we're going to these compartmentalized things where the guy who stole a pound of butter from Wegmans has to go through the mayor's public information officer. I don't know why that job even needs to exist, because if that job was, say $100,000 with benefits and everything else, I don't know, why not pave a street with that or buy a snowplow or something else? This is why, Paul, talk me off the ledge.
Well, and you would think politicians love to talk. You would think they would want to talk instead of having a public information officer do the talking, Again, I don't think it's that burdensome to answer questions, to be asked questions, and you should do that directly as the mayor or as a department head or, whatever the case may be. But, it's building these walls to insulate them.
All right, this is a tough question and you don't even need to answer it now. You can email me some other time. But I mean, what are the few steps we all need to take? Again, I can't wait till I'm dead. You can't tell me to be patient. What are the things we can do, now to start changing this? I don't want everything to go through one person. I want to talk to anyone. I want anyone to feel comfortable saying anything. What can we do?
I think people have to speak up, at most, government meetings, there is an opportunity for the public to speak. You know, they typically will only give you 3 minutes, so you got to be concise. But I think it's important for people to speak up, to send emails, send letters. It's important to organize. You know, it's one thing when it's you as an individual doing it. I think it's our big part of our success is just the strength in numbers and having a group of people speak with these issues. But you can't let it slide. You got to push back on it. You know, people seem to be, you know, there are some people that aren't shy about storming a meeting and complaining about wearing masks. Well, we need to do the same thing about, you know, some of these open government issues, perhaps a little more professional in our demeanor and approach. And I always try to be exceedingly polite. I think a lot of times there's this view that you're just a crazy, you're another crazy that's going to complain about something. So I always try to be polite and respectful, but we have to push back. You know, we have to hold them accountable.
So, you know, somebody, I think Wednesday night or Thursday threw a no-hitter for the Yankees, right? And so I missed it. I wasn't watching it. Everyone is busy. But I asked somebody about it and they told me, oh, the guy threw a no-hitter. Go watch this video. It seems like if that was a government action, somebody would have made me FOIL request information on the no-hitter. Why can't we just talk? I'm too busy. Like my $46 million plan for the state park request. After 3 asks, I've moved on. You know, I'm a pretty dedicated person, but I'm busy also. I don't, why should that, why? Why? Can't you answer me on the first try?
We're here trying to, you know, do that for people as well. You just gotta, as Dave Pfaff said, we gotta keep banging our head against the wall, and sooner or later, hopefully that wall will break. But
well, I like that caveat, until it breaks, because I'm banging my head, but you know, it's not breaking. Well, again, you have 40 paid members. You said you'll have 41 after today, because I'm going to join, because your work is important. And please tell me again how we can join or how we can find you. Thank you for coming on. Please come on again. How do we find you?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Our website is nyopengov.org. nyopengov.org. Again, our Facebook page, you can just, you know, type in New York Coalition for Open Government and you'll find our Facebook page. And we welcome everyone. You know, what's interesting is this is really a nonpartisan issue. Democrats and Republicans are equally bad at open government. And it's always amazing to me that it's just a matter of who's in charge. When one party's in the minority, they complain, but then when they become the majority, they're just as bad, you know?
Yeah, right. So that tells you it's not the politics. It's the organization of it, isn't it? I mean, I'm not big founding fathers, you know, flag waver, but you know, they feared political parties, and it seems to have become true. So, Paul, thank you so much. Will you come back sometime?
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for what you do. Paul Wolf, New York Coalition for Open Government. You can find him online, and you know, he works very closely and it's like the bees, you know, we can't have the bees die. These are things we don't know about. That germinates local government reporting by local journalism. All of that is so crucial. So please, we have to stay vigilant on that. But I can't wait till I die, Paul. Don't tell me to be patient. All right. Thanks, Paul. Have a great Sunday. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.